Hey guys, Noobivore73 here. Welcome back to a Noob's Guide to Feed the Beast. Now, in the last episode, we talked about how to get the most out of the ores that you mine out of the ground. Now, with the exception of the quartz grindstone, the machines that we talked about require power. And so today, we're going to be talking about one of the two forms of power that comes with these mod packs. Now, this also includes the Tekkit mods, Technic Volts, that sort of thing. It comes with specific mods, and so when you're using these mods, you have to worry about power generation. Now, obviously, in vanilla Minecraft, the only sources of power are redstone and coal. But when you're talking about these technical packs like Feed the Beast and Technic and those things, there's two other main sources of power, or main types of power. One is EU, which, if you'll notice, the jetpack that I'm using runs on EU. Now, EU is generated or used by Industrial Craft, and we'll discuss that in another episode. The other type is Minecraft Joules, which are otherwise known as MJs. So let's take a look at some of the ways to generate Minecraft Joules. Now, when you first start in Minecraft, you're going to try and go for the most basic machine or engine required to generate power. And that's going to be this device right here. This is a Stirling engine. Now, let's take a look at the recipe for that. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so a Stirling engine, all it requires is a piston, a couple of stone gears, some cobblestone, and glass. Now, the gears are something that is added by, I think, Buildcraft. And gears are, you start with 4 sticks to form a wooden gear. And then you put that wooden gear and you surround it by cobblestone to make a stone gear. Now, then you can also surround the stone gear with iron to make an iron gear, which you would then surround by gold to make a gold gear, and then diamond to make a diamond gear, and so on and so forth. And there's other variations to that as well. But this particular recipe, like I said, just requires 2 stone gears, 3 cobblestone, a glass, and a piston. So it's very, very simple. These are all ingredients that you will have almost immediately. Now, the downside with the Stirling engine... Actually, let me talk about the upside first. The upside with the Stirling engine is it's very simple. Once you make it, you plunk it down, you connect it to some sort of pipe to move the power, and you put coal in it. And then you use some sort of redstone signal to activate it. Most of these engines do require a redstone signal to activate. If I were to turn this off, even though it's still got coal in it, it would stop running. So it's very simple. It also will never explode. Which unfortunately is something you do have to worry about with some of these devices. The Stirling engine is very safe, but it's also very inefficient. It will only generate 1 Minecraft Joule per tick. Now, per tick, the tick is it's a computer term that refers to a span of time. If your server is running perfectly, or if you're on a private game that is running without any lag at all, then there are 20 ticks in each second. So this is generating about 20 Minecraft Joules a second, which seems like a lot, but you got to keep in mind a lot of these machines require quite a bit of power. Now, I put these devices here. These are storage cubes. Pardon me. These redstone energy cells store power for later use. Now, as you can see, this thing is not charging very fast at all. And meanwhile, I mean, it's burning coal. So you're putting coal into this engine and not getting a lot for it. So while this seems like the most logical thing to start with, and you can use multiple Stirling engines to generate extra power, but that just means you're burning more coal at once. So I would not recommend starting with this unless you absolutely had to. Excuse me. All right. Whoa. Okay, so the next level up from that would be this device right here, which is a hobbyist steam engine. Now, the hobbyist steam engine comes from the same mod as these two steam engines right here, and we'll talk about these in detail in a moment. But you've got the commercial steam engine and the industrial steam engine. Now, these are all from Railcraft, so they're a little bit different than the other engines that you might work with. Hang on, bear with me just a second. Oh, I'm going to turn that off. There we go. All right, now the hobbyist steam engine requires two things to run, so it's already twice as complicated as the Stirling engine. It requires water and coal. Now, the water, you can either just continually add buckets through this interface. You put the full buckets here, it dumps it in, you get the empty bucket back out. Or you can use this device, which comes from the thermal expansion mod, which is the aqueous accumulator. And that's not getting very much water. I wonder if that's why it's running out. I set this all up in kind of a hurry, so generally speaking, you're not going to be running this many machines off of one device. So let me put that back and see if this runs. There we go. And I think it's going to have to cool all the way down. We'll get to this one in a second. Okay, so the hobbyist steam engine requires water and coal, and it's my suggestion is to use the aqueous accumulator to keep this thing full at all times. The reason for that is this is one of the engines that can explode. Now, it won't explode on its own. If you run it continuously and you don't have a continuous water supply, what will happen is the water will run out, the temperature will get extremely high, and it will stop running. The problem is, you see it not running, extremely hot and no water. Your first instinct is to throw some water in it, right? Well, you do that, and the engine's going to explode. You have to let it cool down completely before you can do anything with it, which means you're sitting there waiting for it to cool and not getting anything out. So if you keep water constantly supplied to it, that will never happen, and the only thing that will stop this engine from running is running out of coal. Now, this guy right here, actually, let me skip this guy for a second. So the hobbyist steam engine is not my favorite because of that fact, and also because, if you'll notice, it's generating 1.6 Minecraft joules per tick. So it's higher output than the Stirling engine, but it's got a maximum of 2, but I'm not sure. I've never seen a hobbyist steam engine actually put out 2 MJ per tick. This guy right here, however, does, and this is just the standard steam engine. Now, this engine comes from the thermal expansion mod, just like the aqueous accumulator and the machines that we talked about. This guy puts out a steady 2 MJ per tick, regardless. As long as it's got fuel and it's got water, it will put those out. Now, if it runs out of water, it'll stop running, and the only way to get it to start again is by hitting it with a wrench. The wrench, there's different types of wrenches, and we'll save that for a later episode because that gets a little complicated. But the wrench that comes with the thermal expansion mod is called a crescent hammer. So you build one of those things, you whack it with a crescent hammer by right-clicking it, and it should start working again. It's sort of like a heat dump. Oh, go away, Rain. Okay, so this right here is my favorite for starting off. Now, the downside of the steam engine is it takes a... Oh, no. Gosh, I always forget to do that when I'm creative. Okay, let's throw that away. I don't know. It gave them to me somewhere. I don't care. Let's look at the recipe for it. Okay, so this one requires quite a bit of copper. And the copper, like I said, it's pretty plentiful, but you're going to have to go out and find it, whereas with the Stirling engine, all you need is stone. Although, well, technically you need 1 iron for the piston. Now, in addition to the copper, and these copper gears, again, they're a little bit different. You have 1 iron and 4 copper will just make a copper gear. You don't have to step up from wood to stone to copper. So that saves you a couple steps. You also need this transmission coil, which requires silver. So these are a little more expensive, but if you've gone mining and you've gotten a fair amount of resources, it's always better, in my opinion, to skip the Stirling engine and skip the hobbyist steam engine and go to this one, because you get a solid 2 MJ per tick out of this thing, which means you don't have to worry about running your engines or running your machines at a lower power than they need. So let's talk about this guy right here. This is the combustion engine, and I believe this is a Buildcraft engine. Now, Buildcraft is the mod that adds certain types of machines, not as complicated as Industrial Craft. This guy is a good engine to use. Now, if you'll notice, it is putting out 6 MJ per tick. So already, right there, you're getting 3 times the amount of power out of this thing than you're getting out of the steam engine. The bad part about this thing, it has a tendency to explode. And when it explodes spectacularly. It will take out machines and blocks around it, rather like a creeper that's snuck into your base. And it'll do it, if you're offline and you're on a server that has, that's running continuously, quite frankly, you'll come back to find a hole where you left that combustion engine. Now, it requires water and fuel. Now, the water cools it, and the fuel runs it. Now, I actually had this thing almost explode on me a couple times, even though I have it hooked up to the Aqueous accumulator. To be honest, I've never really used combustion engines because of the fear of watching them explode. Now, I don't know if it gets so hot that it actually evaporates the water in here faster than it can take water in from the Aqueous accumulator. If it does, that makes this a much greater risk than you want to mess with. I don't know. We'll watch this as we go through the other engines. Okay. Now, this one over here is another one that I have not used. This is a peat-fired engine and is from the forestry mod. Now, there are 2 types of peat that you can burn in this thing to get power. This is bituminous peat, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and this is regular peat. Now, this stuff right here, I'm not sure how you get the different kinds of peat. I'm sure someone will be happy to leave a comment in the comment section. But if you burn regular peat in this engine, you'll get 1 MJ per tick. If you burn bituminous peat in this engine, you'll get 2 MJ per tick, as long as you have fuel in there. Now, there's no other requirement, no water or anything else, and you get an output of this ash, which I believe can be used for other things. All right. Now, and also, let me go ahead and point out the difference between the 2 pipes that I'm using here. This stuff right here is Buildcraft conduit pipes, energy conduits. Now, they're lined with redstone, and they will transmit power. That little blue line right there is the power being transmitted to this cube that's being filled up. Let me go ahead and take this off here and show you what happens. Okay, if there is no output for the energy that is being produced by these engines, the power will slowly build up. You'll notice it's building up a lot quicker on this combustion engine than it is on these other ones. Now, if it continues to build up, and I'm going to back up a little bit, and there's no output for it, eventually, let's see if I can time this right here. Wait for it. Okay, come on. Come on! I don't know, it may not do it. Basically, these conduits will explode. Now, the good thing about it is it's not an explosion like the combustion engine is. It's a smaller, more controlled explosion. It'll usually only take out just this conduit right here, and possibly a few conduits around it. But that's still annoying because you lose those conduits, and these things are made out of gold, so they're not the easiest things to come by. And you lose any of the stored energy that's in these conduits when they go. So, not my favorite form of conduit, but again, these are a heck of a lot cheaper and easier to make than these puppies right here. And I'm going to move away from that, and it's probably going to explode here in a minute. It'll probably explode while I'm not looking at it. These right here are Redstone energy conduits. Now, they have a clear advantage over the Buildcraft pipes because, well, that's starting to build up in all four of them now. They have a clear advantage over the redstone pipes because they don't explode. They will not build up extra power. If I were to remove this, then this thing would still run forever and not... What was that? Huh. And not explode because the power is basically contained in the conduit. Now, that's a definite good thing. Now, you can't see the power going through like you can with these, but you still know that they're working. Now, you can also control the flow of the power with these pipes by these little couplers on the where they attach to devices. Like, for example, this one right here has a blue line, and if you look, it looks like an arrow. Whereas this one has an orange line, and it looks like an arrow going out. So this is an arrow going out, this is an arrow going in. If I were to change this, then that would stop the power from flowing through this conduit. So let me switch that back again, and we'll look at this. So as you can see, this power is going into the energy cell, and if I switch it, there's no longer energy going in. Well, okay. For some reason there is still energy going in. I'm not sure why. Okay, let me try it this way then, because it may be ignoring this one. Whoa, there it goes. There it goes. Okay, so yeah, that's what happens if you just leave this conduit there and nothing to drain the energy. So let me go and switch that and switch this one instead. There we go. So that way, I think this conduit or this coupler ignores the setting because it's attached to an engine, but this one would stop the power flow into this device. Now it's the same way with your engines, or with your machines. So you can control where the energy is going with these conduits. And again, these will never do that. So let me go ahead and put this back. No, that's wooden. Where's my gold? Must have got rid of it. Okay. I'll do this. The other thing with these Buildcraft pipes is they require wooden pipes. And see, when I put that cube down, it cleared the obstruction in all those pipes. It just sucked all that energy up into the cube all at one time. Most of these engines, if you're using Buildcraft pipes, they require a wooden pipe to be attached to the engine itself. You could not get these things attached to a gold or even a stone conductive pipe. But if you put one wooden conductive pipe down, then the wooden conductive pipe will then attach to any other type of pipe. So, all right. And see this right here, okay, this is what I was talking about. This engine has been running for a while, and it is hot. And it is no longer taking in water from this aqueous accumulator. This thing is I think it's sucking the water out quicker than it can process it, or than it can fill it. So this thing is bound for an explosion, and I think I'm going to go ahead and let it happen. So we'll just do that. For some reason, it's not flowing to any of them at this point. Not sure why. Okay, so these engines, like I said, my favorite starting engine is this puppy right here, the steam engine. Beyond that, you can use the hobbyist engines, but you're not going to get as much out of the coal that you're using as you would if you're using the steam engines. And this one possibly could be a good alternative, but I think it's difficult to make this peat, and you only get 2 MJ per tick, so it's not really a fan favorite either. Okay, so let's take a look at these right here. Now, like I said, these steam engines are similar to the hobbyist steam engine. They're all made by the Railcraft mod. The difference between the hobbyist engine and these two is the hobbyist engine has a tank internally that you can make and store steam. These engines require an external steam source. So in order to run these engines, you will need to have a boiler like this. Now this is a liquid-fueled boiler. You can also make a solid-fueled boiler that is less efficient, but possibly easier to run. Now, this boiler right here, basically you have your incoming water, which again, this is an aqueous accumulator, and then you'll also need a source of fuel. Now, I just, brought in some fuel and put it in there. You can run this thing on creosote oil, regular fuel, which comes from regular oil, or biofuel, which comes from biomass. And those are all basically it's a process to get any of those fluids to run this boiler. So this is not going to be a starting power source, but you can plan for this to be a stable power source for a good long while. Once you have the boiler set up, then you can attach the steam engines directly to the surface of the boiler, or you can run pipes out from the boiler to pipe the steam to the engines. Now the problem with that is that the pipes tend to lose a little of the steam between the boiler and the engine, so you won't always get full output from them. Now the commercial steam engine, let's take a look at that one. Okay. Now the commercial steam engine requires iron plates, iron gears, and piston and glass. Now the iron plates, you have to have a device called a rolling machine to make, and you put 4 iron ingots in and get, I believe, 4 iron plates out. So it's, it's easy to get a good number of these fairly quickly if you've got a stockpile of standard resources. And it outputs 4 MJ per tick. So it's double the steam engine and more than double the hobbyist. This right here is the industrial steam engine, so let's look at the difference there. And here comes the rain again. Really? Okay. Check that recipe, turn the rain off. Okay, so an industrial steam engine requires steel plates and steel gears. Now that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Steel is not something you can find. You have to actually make it using a blast furnace, which is something that you can only get after having gone to the Nether, collecting blaze rods, finding some slimes to get slime balls out of, to make magma cream. It's a process. So again, this is probably going to be the top tier for this type of power generation. Now, industrial steam engines put out 8 MJ per tick. So if you have a full-size tank, which I have on my Let's Play world, it will support 18 of these industrial steam engines, which means you can put out a maximum of 144 MJ per tick with one boiler. So that's a lot of power when you consider that this Stirling engine only puts out 1 MJ per tick. Now let's look at this, the combustion engine. is really going strong. It's close to 10,000, and I think 10,000 is when it explodes. Now, I'm in creative mode, so I'm not worried about it exploding. But let's take a look at one last engine before we go. This is a good mid-grade, sort of something halfway between the steam engine and this setup over here. This is the magmatic engine. And as the name implies, it runs on lava. You put lava in it, and it'll put out power. And it'll put out 4 MJ per tick. So like I said, good halfway point between the steam engine and these puppies over here. In fact, it puts out the same amount of power as the commercial with no boiler required. Now, you do have to pump lava into it. And as you can see, what I'm using right here is this liquid transposer, which is pulling the lava out of these cans and dumping it into the engine. Obviously, I set that up in creative mode. There it goes. That's why you don't use commercial or combustion engines unless you know what you're doing. Wow, that was a good explosion. I think that would have made a creeper jealous, to be completely honest with you. All right, so as I was saying, with the magmatic engines, the best course of action is usually to find a lava source, such as a underground lava pool, or a volcano sometimes, or the Nether, and set up a pump and pump the lava out into a tank, and then have that pumped into the magmatic engines. Now, if you guys will check out my Let's Play, I had that system running, and I had 20 magmatic engines running off of that tank of lava, so I was getting 80 MJ per tick with very little effort. Now, obviously, the steam boiler is going to give you more with a maximum setup, but the magmatic engines were really good. They got me through setting this up, and these things are kind of a pain to get started. So, what I would suggest, and let me not blather on any further, when you start your game, the best thing to do is, if you have to go with Stirling engines because you don't have any other resources, don't make too many of them. Make maybe 3, and you can stack those directly against whatever machine you're wanting to power. But plan on moving to the steam engines fairly quickly, because you double your output, and the only thing you have to arrange is setting up this aqueous accumulator, which is extremely easy to make, and setting up some pipes to pipe water directly into the steam engine. So you're going to double your output for very little effort. So I would not stay on Stirling engines very long. So once you're on steam engines, work on getting magmatic engines going. And once those are no longer effective, that's when you want to switch over to this thing. Now again, this is only for MJs, or Minecraft Joules. In the next episode, we're going to talk about EU, which is the energy source for industrial craft. And I'm going to warn you right now, that's going to be a short episode, because I don't know a whole lot about EU or industrial craft, because I don't hardly ever use it, because it can be extremely difficult. So I'm going to tell you guys what I can, and I'm going to direct you guys to some sources of information for further clarification on what I don't know. So, if you've enjoyed this episode, and I certainly hope that you have, I know I did a lot of talking and covered a lot of stuff in a relatively short amount of time. Leave any comments or suggestions or questions in the comment section below. If you guys have questions, I will do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. Make sure that you subscribe if you have not already done so, and be sure you slap that like button like it stole something, and we will catch you guys next time.